Uduasha city, where the sun is a mirror and the moon a shadow. 800 years ago, the gates of death were broken by the Emperor Immortal. The five key bearers, however, had already unlocked them and walked right through. It is in Uduasha city they dwell. Now, the ghost field breathes next to our reality, lit by the eternal flame of the well of Udu. It is a second skin, a place where thought and will struggle against gravity and light. In other places, the dead congregate in the ghost field, but in Uduasha, the well city, the hell city, they fall straight into the flames. See its glittering districts, Kshitijpur, where the rich plot to buy the horizon, Bunda West, where the refugees of two different nations flock, and Pasarhandu, the vertical maze of market and murder. And here is Udepat, where the ceaseless temple resides. Its inhabitants, a family, a snake, and a god. The temple has stood since before the gods of this world were forgotten. Watch as it turns the wheels of revolution. Welcome to Desperate Attune, an actual play podcast about people who take risks so they can survive against the odds. Welcome to the first episode of Desperate Attune, an actual play podcast in which five friends from all over the world play Blades in the Dark, a tabletop role-playing game written by John Harper. If you're not familiar with Blades, in short, it's a game about daring scoundrels doing heists, getting into trouble, and fighting a system that wants to crush you under its heel. If you already know the game, though, you should also know that we're not exactly playing what I've just described. Our crew is a family of cultists who live in the city of Uduasha, which we've reinvented as a mix of many cities we all love: Calcutta, Hyderabad, Delhi, and a dash of Singapore. Caught between modernity and tradition, we'll follow the disciples of the Temple of the Ceaseless Wheel. We wanted to record the kind of game we want to see more of, inspired directly by South Asian vibes, especially Bengali and Telugu, with a focus on a playstyle in which the GM and the players all contribute to the way the world lives and feels, and a view of colonialism that reflects but doesn't necessarily reproduce our world. If you want to know a little bit more about our world and our characters, we're releasing a bonus episode which you can check out on our feed. Let us know at desperateattune@gmail.com if you want a closer look at the description of the Hell City. All of us have contributed to the world building, and while we don't have any plans right now to release it, there's no reason that should remain the case. And with that preamble finished, let's head into the actual game. How would you like to go first? Introduce yourself, tell us something about you and your character.
So I'm Zoheb, also known as Klow. And yeah, I'm playing Miraz Chokroborty. He's a very typical kind of like a South Asian guy who went away abroad to study engineering and then came back home. Except he came back home to take over the family cult, even though he doesn't want to do that at all.
Emma, would you like to go next?
Sure. I am Emma. I am playing Joan, who is a bit of a newcomer to the city and to the faith as well. She used to be a railjack, but she is now retired to become a student at the temple.
Prince?
I'm Prince. I play Vickers, Miraz's wife, who is a roofball enthusiast and a, countess from the Shattered Isles. She married for love and continues the noble sport of roofball in the city, which is basically rugby on rooftops with a lot of hilarious violence.
Incredible. Lastly, should I call you Soap? I think Soap is as good as we're gonna get. Lastly, Soap.
Yes, Soap's fine. Yeah, so I'm Aadiyat, or Soap, on this podcast. I'm playing Abbas Chokroborty, Miraz's uncle. Abbas is essentially like an ex-spy for, I guess, an Islamic religious scholar living in Uduasha. He is extremely nationalistic and anti-accuracy and anti the noble demon houses. Though he doesn't do much about that nowadays except complain about it. It can be found, for the most part, just hanging around in the temple and reading books and giving Miraz a hard time.
And my name is Soumithri. Mostly I am referred to as Tree, as that is how most people on this podcast met me. I'm running this game, and I hope that every single person you hear me play sounds at least like someone you would like to have a conversation with. So I think that it is just another regular day in Uduasha. The great well eternally on fire continues to blaze. The Undercity, we see people scurrying in and out, strange beasts and wax golems finding their way through the labyrinth. And I think that we follow a small child running up the road towards the temple of the Eternal Wheel, the temple of the Chokroborty. And the small child, as we see him running, we see that he has in his hand clutched a letter, and he delivers this letter to whoever is present. So that could be really any of the PCs. It could be Abbas, it could be Joan, it could be Vickers or Miraz.
Mm-hmm. I think I would like to volunteer to take this letter.
And the letter appears to be something that is actually quite common, a kind of message that is quite common in Uduasha, which is people hire normally small children, not older than about 12 or 14, to warn people that they are coming, right? The letter basically tells you that guests will be arriving to the temple in about 2 hours. But what strikes you as odd about it is that it is very formal. And normally this kind of letter is like, hey, I'm going to be there in 2 hours. And this is more like, directed to the temple of.
Excellent. So I will take this opportunity to describe how Vickers looks in this moment. She's in her roof ball uniform with the fake wings on her back, her leather jacket, her like strange swishing skirts, and her corsetry and a belt full of tools, which are meant to throw at people. That is allowed. So she is very heavily get up in her like dangerous woman street fighter, and she takes this letter, she looks at it, and she turns and shouts into the temple, "Miraz, darling, you have official correspondence."
I think you have to shout a couple times before Miraz hears you over the sound of, let's see, I think there's some girders being installed under his supervision, and then he kind of emerges.
Yeah, she sort of turns and says, "Someone brought a letter for you, darling."
And Miraz strides forward. So I think we see Miraz as a fairly tall, spare, handsome man with like a really neatly swept back hair, and he is always dressed like kind of like a sort of like a jumpsuit jacket combo sort of thing, but like fairly stylish. And he's always got this really big, heavy satchel full of his tools. Always carries it around. So he kind of like strides up.
Mm-hmm.
Said, "Well, let's see." And he kind of takes the letter. So what language is it in?
The language is Common Hadrathi, what is normally spoken in Uduasha, but the style is very formal.
Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, can Vickers read this?
I think that she can recognize that it is officially styled, but I don't think she actually can like easily follow it. Her Hadrathi is still, I think her spoken Hadrathi is fine, but her written Hadrathi is still staggering. She was never that good at studying. So she hands it over with just a comment of, "I do like the handwriting. Quite neat, don't you think?"
We should be honored that someone with such refined handwriting is coming to visit. And then I look at the child. And I think so I don't know if this is the etiquette or not, like whether or not I'm allowed to ask this child by the standards of Iruvian formality who sent the letter. But, either way, Miraz is going to ask because he's an outsider, right? So he kind of looks at the child and says, "So, who handed you the letter, boy?" This is a boy, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, so far as you can tell, yes. The child, cocks his head and then, puts his hand out expectantly.
Ah, all right then. And then he kind of looks around in his pockets and then smiles and hands the child a lozenge.
Very good. The child looks at the lozenge and then looks back up at you and says, "If you're not going to pay me, then I'm going to leave."
Oh, nonsense. Nonsense. Of course we'll pay you. Now, we're a little short on coin at the moment, but I can offer you a delicious home-cooked meal. I will hear no objections about it.
I think,
Come.
yeah.
I will grab
know
the
what?
child and
Like,
forcibly
Why
drag
don't you
him
roll
to
me
the
sway just
table.
as a fortune? I think like you can't really fail at this, but I want to know like.
No, sway? No, I am rolling command. This is an order,
Excellent. Even
but
better.
I will roll
yeah.
it as a fortune roll. That's fine. I shall not take no for an answer. Oh no, I rolled a 2.
Yeah, I think what like you don't take no for an answer, and therefore you don't get any answers. I think like it's the kind of thing where like you have to like
Mhm.
physically drag him, and he's like kicking and screaming. He's like, "No, I know people like you. You disappear people, and then you eat them for dinner. I'm dinner, aren't I?"
Then I will reassure him as I drag him to the table with a fate almost worse, because I have attempted Akorosi cooking again. So not only is it a foreign cuisine, but it is a foreign cuisine done extremely badly.
The child is looking down at like.
It is a very, very spicy eel. It is the whole eel. The eyes are the most delicious part.
Child is looking down at the eel, and he's looking up at Miraz as if to be like, "I will tell you so long as you make sure I don't eat this."
Miraz kind of takes out another lozenge and holds it out as an alternative.
Somehow the lozenge seems so much more delicious and non-threatening that the child like grabs it, puts it in like his mouth, and like as he's sucking on it, he says, "It was someone from the railway station. They just told me to find the temple. They didn't even know which temple. Do you know how long it took me to find you?" Which is when you realize that like while maybe as it was written, it said, "Oh yeah, we're coming in 2 hours." It's probably taken this boy 1 hour and 50 minutes to get to you. So these guests, whoever they are, they're going to arrive imminently.
Well, it's good that the food's already laid out, huh? And then I kind of look at Vickers and smile.
Vickers looks and says, I'm afraid it's not very much. What was that you just gave the boy? Is that factory made? You know I don't approve of the
I think
factory made
Miraz has had this
medicines.
conversation many times, and I think he trusts factory made much more than organic because it's all standardized. And then he kind of says,
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, sorry, I just had it on me, and sooner him than me, huh?" And he and he's trying to like get away.
Vickers smiles and goes, "Oh, well, of course. They do seem to stick an awful lot of those things to you whenever you're at the Foundation. I don't know how it keeps happening."
I think
Uncle
at this
Abbas,
point, like, so
Uncle
there's
Abbas,
work
we've
going
got
on in the
guests.
temple, right? I think Abbas is just like looking at it, and he's like, just tutting and shaking his head at the people who are working on it. He's like, what's that? That's been there for 500 years. What are you doing? What are these people? And then he turns around at the others and is like, yes. What is it? What time of day is it? It's morning.
We're having guests.
It's probably like, I want to say, I mean, if you're having eel, then it's probably dinner time.
Yes, I think this was meant to be feeding the workers who are helping us out, clearly. I am offering them a treat here.
Treat.
Let me just insert a little world building detail here. When it's meant to be quote unquote daytime, there's this big giant mirror that's suspended above the Udu. During daytime, it kind of like keeps flashing quote unquote daylight, reflecting it from the fire onto the rest of the city, or at least the parts of the city that aren't in shade. And yeah, during nighttime, that's just kind of taken off. So there is in fact some light.
Yeah.
Artificial.
You are then heading towards dusk, which in Uduasha weirdly means as the mirror is being taken down, there's like a very like wild way that this sunlight moves, right? Because like as the mirror is taken down, the reflection, instead of being somewhat like standard and like you can kind of tell what's happening, the light kind of goes everywhere for the half an hour that it takes. And that's currently what's happening.
Yeah, so I think I look to Abbas and I kind of like hand him the
like,
letter.
Guests? Since when do we have guests coming to our temple? Like, people just come in. Abbas will just take the letter and read it and like to see like what it's about.
Yeah, I think Abbas, you actually recognize probably a lot more of the letter, and it is a letter written in like a hand that like suggests it's like how like some people learn like cursive writing by like tracing the letters and not actually using the letters, right? Like, so this is like that kind of like not stenographic, like calligraphic writing, right? And it says that the temple of the what is it called? The temple of the salt shore calls upon its ancient pact with the temple of the ceaseless wheel, and that an emissary from the temple of the salt shore will be arriving in 2 hours, and then that follows some like very specific arcane like signature at the bottom that's meant to like, oh yeah, no, I'm authentic or whatever.
Like Abbas does not remember what this is, like, or what this thing is, but he will not admit that he doesn't know what's going on. So he just pinches the bridge of his nose and goes, Temple of the Salt Shore. Yeah. I think I have some notes written down somewhere. Yeah, bring them in. Yeah, like Temple of the Salt Shore. Okay, so I think I was just desperately trying to like remember if like was there an ancient pact?
Yeah, I mean like this is absolutely the kind of thing that you should roll
I
study
guess
for as a fortune, I
me
guess.
studying the letter is trying to figure out like is this legit, like or trying to remember and match my
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright,
yeah. I mean, it
what
could
are we
be
thinking?
both.
Just risky standard? Oh, fortune roll. Okay.
I think this is a
Right,
fortune roll.
okay.
I don't think there's any risk here yet, right? Like this is just 6. Very good. Okay. So I think what you remember is that the Temple of the Salt Shore, like you remember it because about 200 years ago, it was one of the biggest like religions in Scotland, and the reason that there is like some connection to your temple is that there was a big like scholarly like gathering in Scotland that someone from your temple went to, right? But you also know with a 6 that over the last 20 years, all of the powerful temples in Scotland have been like systematically razed and destroyed because they are usually centers of insurrection against the imperial power. And the Salt Shore especially was one of them. So you're pretty sure that like there is no way that this temple can continue to be existing, right? Like it is probably one of the first targets that the Imperials had during the war against Scotland. And I think it's as you realize this, I want to just cut to Joan. Joan, where are you at the moment?
I think Joan is in some sort of part of the temple where ceremonies would be held. And she is preparing, I think it would be some sort of like a censer of incense or laying out prayer books for a ceremony in the places where people are going to be sitting.
Right. Okay. I think this is probably like not the main hall where everyone normally sits, right? You're like the preparation area is maybe like in like a side corridor. And I think you hear a rattle because I think I have now decided that your snake does rattle. And you as you hear the rattle and you look up, this massive snake moves, by the way, very quickly and very quietly for something this big. And you hear it, like it does not speak using its mouth because it can't, but rather it uses the ghost field to make you understand its thoughts. And I think this is something that is only possible in Uduasha. I think if it tried this in Duskwall, it would end up like melting your brain. But here the ghost field is like more easily manipulated in this way. And it says to you, take care, Joan. An opportunity approaches, but so does danger.
And she like takes a moment, slightly taken aback by the serpent being here, but not in any way like afraid or shocked. I think she regards it with love more than with like than with shock. Mm-hmm. And she asks, an opportunity for what? Or am I supposed to find out?
I think the snake says an opportunity for growth, but you will not be safe during this opportunity as you have been in this temple, Joan. I worry that perhaps the peace that you have found, you will now lose.
Something shifts in her face when the snake says that. And she puts down like the prayer book that she had in her, or the stack of them that she had in her hands on a nearby stand, a chair, and makes like a slight bow, inhales like shakingly. Thank you. Thank you for warning me then.
The snake, I think, the enormous hood leans forward and like nudges you on the shoulder, just in like a gesture of affection. And then before you can react, it curls up and vanishes down the corridor, probably back down into the temple. You are not exactly sure whether the reason that it left is because it said what it needed to say and it thinks you can take care of yourself, or whether it just found something else much more worthy of its attention and now it's gone to that.
Right. I think as it leaves and as like the sound of its scales fades away, that in the silence that it leaves behind, she hears the voices of the others echoing through the hall. And she looks that direction and makes to go see them.
Well, Uncle, have you gleaned any insights from the
Temple of
letter?
the Salt Shore probably doesn't even exist. I remember that they were all destroyed a long time ago. I don't know what this is about, but someone is up to no good. But I think, we can always invite them in and see what they want.
Meanwhile, in the background, Vickers sees Joan approaching. He goes, older sister, have a seat, have a seat. We're having eel today. I thought you might like a taste of home.
She smiles, very obviously out of politeness. Oh, thank you.
Uh-huh. And I realized they don't fish for eel in Dungeons. This is probably very
That's our
not
real
fresh.
station.
Any news?
Oh yes, there's a letter of some kind. We're having some sort
I
of
think I was
formal visit from another temple,
John
as I
was
understand
from
it.
Scotland and would probably know. John, tell me, do you remember this temple of the Salt Shore? These are all destroyed a long time ago. No?
I assume that would be information that she would know. Is there any particular context that she would have for this specific temple from having lived in Scotland?
Yeah, I think that you would know that the temple became it was destroyed fairly early on in the war, and its devotees kind of became very big in the Revolutionary Army. But as time went on, without a consolidated power base, it found itself kind of being swallowed up by other faiths. And it is surprising that now, so far away from where you would expect to hear about it, someone appears to have used its name.
So I guess instead of responding to the question, she says, "Oh, I guess that makes sense. I was just given a warning that we would have an opportunity for growth, but that it would be dangerous. The danger was coming here in the temple."
Well, let's see what this danger is.
Yes.
Okay, we will invite them in. Let's see why they're pretending to be this temple. Miraz, listen to me, boy. This is a moment for you to learn. We must be like the viper, right? We wait, we observe. Then when the moment is right, we shall strike. Miraz, are you writing this down?
I think Miraz, who doesn't like to. So obviously he pretends he doesn't care about any of this spooky shit, but he also is the kind of person who doesn't like not knowing what's being talked about. So he's like, wait, what is all this? This temple of the Salt Shore,
yeah,
is it
so,
some sort of Scovlander thing?
Where is your head during our lectures? Temple of the Salt Shore was a temple in Scotland, but a long time ago, the Imperials destroyed it. It makes no sense for them to be coming here now.
But not only are they destroyed, they are. The faith doesn't exist anymore in that shape. It's supposed to have been absorbed into others.
Destroyed by were they seditionists, revolutionaries,
or pretenders?
Why else would the Imperials destroy them?
I don't think I like the idea of these so-called pretenders to some sort of anti-imperialist cult coming over here. We shouldn't be mixed up in that
not
sort of thing.
mixed up in that kind of thing. Yes.
Especially if His Majesty, the snake, and there's like some sort of like an attempt at being witty and sarcastic about the snake and trying to like shut it down a little bit while also acknowledging the fact that it's a living god of some sort. If the snake thinks that it's a bad idea for them to be here, then I think we should listen to the snake.
Did His Majesty specify what level of danger we are dealing with here? Will firearms suffice, or shall I get the heavy equipment? I think I look at Joan to see what level
I think
of
she's
danger.
very taken aback by that question. You said like visibly like stammers for a moment. I don't. I got the sense that he recommended caution more than any sort of explosive.
Oh, delightful then. I shall simply keep a couple of holdout, she says, and she takes out her guns, which she has a pair of pistols. They were a wedding present from her father to keep her safe from ruffians. She will simply put them in her belt, unobtrusively.
So my wife wants to shoot them. My uncle seems to want to invite them in and throw vipers on them, if I understand you correctly, Uncle.
Yes.
And
We are the viper.
of course, how could I not see?
This is the moment that I think the camera at least sees two figures, quite forlorn and bedraggled, finally turn up at the temple. They are both, I think, not very old, maybe in their late 20s. One of them is short, has her arm in a sling, and is quite clearly like recovering from some kind of quite traumatic injury. The other one, who bears like a resemblance to her, is a bit taller, probably a bit younger, and they have two large bags, one in each hand, and they are kind of like looking around, not in a way as if to be like, where is everybody? I cannot believe this, but more in a furtive, like more in a furtive, like, is this where we're supposed to be? What's going on kind of way?
Yeah, I think Miraz notices them, and if I may, I'm going to rush towards them. I'm going to walk towards them and go, "What is this? Is this Kovlander Revolutionary Boarding House? What here with your bags and baggage, sending us what? Some sort of telegram 10 minutes in advance before coming in here? Listen, we don't want any of this nonsense, right? I don't know what you think you're doing here, but this is a law-abiding temple. We want no part of anything you're offering."
I think as you say this...
Well, I was saying, I was like, just after his lecture about being patient like the Viper, he's kind of just like internally cringing. I think he would, so I think one of the things about Abbas, like about his character is that he really wants to show off his intellect, right? And he will even invite like a dangerous situation, like to pursue such an opportunity, because it would just make sense, like for some people to claim to be from a temple that doesn't even exist, like just to not entertain them at all. But like he wants to show off his chops, right? So like, I'm gonna destroy these guys with logic and reason. So I think I was gonna try to rescue the situation. Like, so gentlemen, sorry, my nephew has been away he does not understand our customs. Please. You say you're from the Temple of the Salt Shore, was it? Yes.
Yeah, I think the taller one looks at you and says, "We were told that if we came here and gave you," and then like that, like one of the two bags, they look down as if to be like, I can't remember which one is it? Oh shit! And then like they just like thrust one at you, and then they say, "We were told if we give you this, then you would help us." And then like they're just like hoping that you will take the bag from them. Yeah. I think like it's, by the way, I want to be clear here, they're definitely siblings, the two of them. And while the younger and taller one is doing all of the talking, the older one with the arm in the sling is kind of glaring at everybody.
So I reach for the bag. I don't know if Abbas wants to get it himself, but either way,
No, I think
if
Abbas
so,
does.
there's going to be a
He
little
has
bit
eye
of
on the
tussle
bag, but
for
like
him.
I think Abbas is more trying to like because he knows something's off, right? Like he wants to get information before doing anything. I'm like, gentlemen, why so hasty? We've just prepared food for you as well. But please tell me, you must be so tired. You've come. You must have come from a long distance away. When did you come to Uduasha?
We just arrived. They told us if we made it to the Ceaseless Temple, and we said, well, if we send the letter, then
of course
then
our
you
ancient pact.
would help us.
Sorry, I'm an old man. I'm having trouble remembering. Could you remind me what the ancient pact was?
They said that like if you open the bag, then you'll know. Do you mind if we sit down? My sister's still, she can't really be walking for too long, and we couldn't
Yeah, I think
get
Abbas
any other
will
way
just
up, so we had to
gesture
like
that
walk
go and
ourselves.
sit down. But I think maybe he also makes a little bit of eye contact with Vickers, like like keep an eye on them. Yeah.
Yeah, Vickers notices this, nods, and says, "Oh, do sit down. By a wonderful coincidence, we happen to have lots of eel left over. I don't know how that happened. Please, take a seat."
I think Miraz, meanwhile, is taking the bag away to his workshop, where he quickly dons his protective suit, kind of like the whole hazmat sort of thing, and is opening the bag cautiously as though expecting it to be a bomb.
It is not a bomb. It is actually 90% just like padding material. But in the center of the bag is what appears to be like when books fall apart because that binding has fallen apart, and then what you should do is rebind them. But sometimes what people do is they just like leave the pages in the right order and then like choose very carefully never to open the books again. That is what has happened to this book. I don't know if any of you can tell this by looking at it, but this it's basically made somehow of a combination of like the kind of wax that the golems in Uduasha are made of, and some kind of ground, like the ink is made up of like some kind of ground gemstone. And on the top of the book is the symbol of your temple, which is the eternal wheel. You recognize it immediately. It is impossible to mistake. And it is probably very valuable.
So I think Miraz opened it in the safety and isolation of his workshop, just in case it was a bomb, which he thought it was. But now that he looks at it, he kind of frowns and takes off like the sort of like, I guess, mask of the protective suit, and like still wearing the rest of the suit, so he looks quite funny. He kind of waddles back towards the dining table, slams the bag down on the table, upsets some of the stew, and kind of gestures at the book inside, and says, "But what is this?" And you can see that he's like, he sounds slightly disappointed that it's not a bomb.
It's
as
just
you should be. As you should be.
Yeah, I think like it's Abbas's time. Like he's just gestures with his hand to have a look at the book.
I imagine, by the way, in the interim,
It's a far greater
these two
threat
are now
than
sitting at this
Vickers's
table with a steel in front of them.
Yes.
array of weaponry.
Yes, Vickers is looking at them, probably looking like she's looking at them expectantly, but she's in fact just keeping an eye on them, like Uncle Abbas instructed. So they're in this awkward situation where she seems like a really eager host, but is actually just watching over them.
They are actually eating the eel. It's probably not the worst thing that they've eaten the last couple of weeks. In fact, I think like the younger sibling is feeding their sister because the sister's got one arm in a sling. And it's kind of cute. It's a very like touching display of sibling bonding.
Absolutely. But if nothing else happens until Miraz returns, then I'm not about to start something.
I think Miraz is looking slightly sheepish. Like, this is why he's disappointed, because he was angry and now it turns out he had no reason to be angry. So now he's just kind of standing in the corner in his hazmat suit. What is Yuan up to?
I think she is like, she has been squint glaring at these siblings for the entirety of the interaction. And at the point where Miraz leaves and they sit down to have food, she like kind of goes to sit next to them, and she will eventually go to shake or extend a hand to the younger sibling by way of like offering to shake his, saying, "My name is Joan," and then she says in Skavic by way of a very traditional greeting, "Save Hearth."
I think when you say that, like the sister, like for the first time, looks up and looks like meets your eyes, and she says in the same language, the traditional response, which is warm home.
Very cute. I think when she speaks, Joan looks in her eyes very intently, having seen them being like really kind of nervous the whole time, right? She's trying to look at these people and like hold their gaze and see if she sees a hint in there by which she can determine whether it's the nervousness of someone who's hiding something or the nervousness of someone who is genuinely lost.
I think this is a role, and I think there is some risk here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a risky position, but I think
Mhm.
I think this is a controlled position, but it's not risk-free. And I think the risk here is that like these are exactly the kinds of people who will notice being noticed.
Yeah, so absolutely.
I think I would like to assist, and the way I'm assisting is, I think, what I've already done, right? Kind of like
Yeah.
made an asshole of myself, and I'm looking at them. So I'm going to take stress for that because now I feel kind of ashamed. But maybe I'll be vindicated. Who knows?
I'm gonna roll survey and take the bonus die.
6. Oh, very good.
It's a
Full
6.
success. Yeah, I think in fact it's both those things that you said. Unfortunately, it's not one or the other, right? I think with a 4 or 5, you would only quote one of them. But you realize that like
Mm-hmm.
they are nervous both because they understand that they are somewhere that maybe they shouldn't be, and they're not sure quite what to make of it, and they've been through a lot. But they're also nervous because if someone cottons on to who they really are, they could be in a lot of trouble. And like they've made it here through the skin of their teeth. Like you can see by the way that like the sister, she relaxed when she spoke to you, but she didn't relax enough. And she's definitely still eyeing Vickers with some
Mm-hmm.
like stress. It's just towards you that she's like, "Hey, at least this person might be safe."
She asks, she says, like, "You look very tired, so I hope you enjoy the eel. Take your time with it. But after that, I think we would," she says, looking over her shoulder, "I think we would all appreciate if you could elaborate a little bit on why you are here. Because this book is not telling me anything."
I think, yeah, I mean, she continues not to say anything, but her younger sibling like kind of swears, and you understand it because they're swearing in Skovic again, and it's probably like one of those. Unfortunately, in my head, I'm only thinking of Telugu swear words, but it's one of those like, motherfucker kind of things, right? Like, just I can't believe this, and I think they look at you and say, we didn't have anywhere else to go. We robbed the temple, okay? And there was a letter, and we figured that maybe if we just did what the letter said, maybe we'd get lucky. And, well, that's why we're here. And I think that, like, it's not hard to tell that, like, the previous thing they were saying about, oh no, they just told us to come here or whatever, it's like a very, very, like, flimsy kind of lie, but it's like the kind of thing that like if they needed to double down on, they could. But in this case,
I think Miraz had taken a sip of tea, kind of like chilling out. And then when he hears rob the temple, he kind of spits it out and then kind of like bashes his fist on the table and says, No, absolutely out of the question. We will not be sheltering criminals. What is this?
We're not criminals. Those temples were all ransacked and destroyed years ago. We were looking for shelter, and then it turned out that like there was like we pushed something, and then a secret passageway opened up.
What absolute nonsense is this?
I
What
think
is this,
Abbas is like trying to just
Secret
wave
passages.
Miraz off a little bit because like there's
Yeah, I think he kind of like calms down.
Miraz, peace. Like you said, you had nowhere else to go. What do you mean? From whom? Like who's chasing you?
I think they look at their sister, and then the sister kind of like looks at Joan, and I think Joan like, yeah, I mean like maybe it's a bit harsh, but like, and you can resist this if you like, but I think like you can feel that like she's really trusting you. She's really like and like you will, if like you fuck her over, you will feel bad about it, I guess. But like she's like deciding to take on faith that like that moment that you had meant something, and then she turns back and like kind of nods, and then the sibling kind of says, "Our parents were revolutionaries. They died, and the Imperials they've been chasing us ever since. We had to get out. We couldn't stay there anymore, and we nearly died so many times. And when we found this, we thought we could get away." And I think the sister says in Skovic, just to you, Joan. I think like everybody kind of knows that like Ulf Ironborn is in Duskwall, he's like a small time thug, right? And he kind of claims to be like descended from royalty or something, right? I think she says to you, Ulf's lie is our truth.
She gets up and walks away and like stays in this room, but like she's like looking out of a
Guys,
window.
remind me who Ulf Ironborn
Takes
was
a
again.
deep
I
breath.
vaguely remember him, but it's been a while.
Yeah, no, he's a Skovish revolutionary / thug who made it from Scotland to Duskwall. And he's creating hell there, basically.
He's a
I
Blades in the
see,
Dark
okay.
meme. He's
Alright.
basically Blades Chuck Norris.
But okay, so his lie, like what he claims to have done many things or something. And,
He claims to be
okay,
related to the
okay,
royal
okay.
family, right? From what I
I see.
understand, what she's saying.
And these people actually are,
Yeah,
or at least they claim they are too.
yeah, they claim that they are. Yeah.
Okay, so what does Joan do as she looks out the window, or say?
For a moment, it seems that she is going to like retract into herself completely. And I think at this point I should introduce my rival. So what she says is, I know someone here in the city who does what you do. Someone connected to the revolution. I will introduce you to them tomorrow. The person she's referring to is Marion, who is her rival because Marion and Joan once were friends, or at least to a certain extent. When she came to Iruvia or to Uruasha, they somehow like found each other again, as if by like extreme chance. And Marion asked her to like join the cause, and Joan refused because that is not the sort of thing that she would want to get it mixed up in, and that has
so
left
Joan
a certain
is
bitterness between
like
them.
sympathetic towards the revolutionary movement, though.
I don't think so. I think it's one of those like it's a source of sheer personal conflict for her, rather or internal conflict, rather than that she has
Okay, so like
decided
you're
she's pushing away the
sending them
issue.
to this to Marion like as a way of to just like get rid of them, like make it someone else's problem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to
I think
fucking deal with
of
this.
us being someone who is sympathetic towards any kind of anti-imperial movement, will say, I think I don't know. Will he shelter them? Like I think he agrees. Like yeah, like you look like you've had a long journey. You could spend the night here, but this book, Miraz, hand it to me. I want to see what it says.
The book is like between us. Like Miraz has already walked away from it. But like when you're like, they can shelter here, Miraz kind of gives you this like look of like, what the fuck, seriously? And then he kind of gestures at you and says, why are we involving ourselves with this? I don't know. Some ancient pact from some temple you barely remember, and these people who I see no reason to trust them, and well, maybe we can ship them off to Joan's unsavory friend or whatever, but having them in our roof, no. I and then he kind of like turns to Vickers and it's like, Vickers, you see that it's too risky, don't you?
Risky? No, I don't. How? She genuinely does not understand.
They may well be wanted by the
Miraz,
by the
please
Empire,
listen to me.
for all we know.
the
Oh.
garter snake forms communities numbering in the hundreds. They're always there for each other. They form communities. And we have to learn from this. So if someone comes to our home and they ask for help, how can you say no? And I think our very own. Oh wait, do you think Abbas has some kind of nickname for Vickers, or I don't know, like, because like I mean, being like a South Asian, like usually like the father-in-law or something.
Yeah, I think she's the little sister. I think that would be the fun, like
yeah,
our
like
little
like
sister.
in like
that's cute.
Asian like cultures, like usually you say
Uh-huh.
something like
Yeah,
Ma Baba. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I've been calling Joan
yeah,
older
so, like I
sister, so
think
I guess
our
I'm the little
very own
sister.
little sister here can take care of any problems should they arise.
Vickers' face lights up. He goes, "Oh, am I taking care of the problems? Do give me a minute." And she wolf whistles, like puts two fingers in her mouth and whistles to summon the team.
Very good. Like, and I think we see a very short montage of like as you whistle, there's someone like kind of like drinking like a cup of tea. There's someone else like peering at a newspaper that like glasses at the end of their nose, right? And like as soon as you do this, all of them like spring into action, and like 2 minutes later, they're all like in front of you, like a bit winded, but nevertheless like on time and present.
Yeah, Vickers has not really grasped the magnitude of this because she was never that good at high politics.
Yeah.
So she looks to Miraz to see how he is reacting to the fact that I have now summoned personal bodyguards.
He leans back. So, like, normally, in a situation where one player wants something, other players want other things, I'd call for some sort of PvP role. But, like, I don't think it's interesting for me to get my way in character, So I think, like, like, everyone wants to shelter them, and I, as a player, want to shelter them. So I think Miraz kind of, like, leans back, sighs, looks at the entire tableau, and wonders how his life ended up this way. And then just kind of says, well, I'll leave you all to it then. To your playing at revolutionary games, to you chatting with serpents, and then kind of gestures at Vickers, and he was going to say something to her, but like he can't bring himself to be mean to his wife. I'll go off doing what I do best then, right? And then he kind of goes off and tries to go supervise workers, but like they've already gone for dinner, and then he just kind of goes off to his workshop to be alone.
Yep. And Vickers addresses the team. She like looks at her husband with sympathy, and will definitely have to catch up with Miraz later. But she looks at the team and says like, "I'm sorry to summon you all so suddenly, but it turns out that we have some guests in our company who are being pursued by ruffians. Ladies and gentlemen, you know the deal. Ruffians on our neighborhood, on our territory, on our turf, as it were, is something that we shall not tolerate. Huzzah!"
And yeah, I think you've now trained these people. They go huzzah, like as if like they're in like a military like precision, right?
I mean, they come from various street gangs, so they perfectly well understand the defending guests from ruffians pursuing them, right? It's so
this is absolutely amazing.
I think that like as Miraz walks away, the younger sibling looks at Abbas and says, "We don't want anything to do with the revolution. They keep trying to make us into their figureheads or their leaders, and just want to be left alone."
Might at this point give
just
them a
want to be
look
safe.
That, well, not like consciously, but like subconsciously, there's a little change in his face that where like he knows what that's like, because he's had people trying to pressure him into, like, when he's part of the revolutionary movement, he remembers like, yeah, people have tried to pressure him into doing things that he doesn't want to do either. So he just gives them a nod and says, "Look, there are bedrooms in the back. I think I can show you where they are when you're ready." And after that, like, he just lets it be. I think he's gonna take a look at the book, as actually, like, I don't know, if there's anything there, just leaf through it, and just out of curiosity, like, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna offer you two things, and you can pick one. The first is that you can just roll a fortune roll here, which is to say you can do this completely risk-free, and you'll get some very basic information. Or you can take some risk and really try and have a glance at this and I will start a clock. And the name of the clock is
So
going to
the
be
second option is
the wheel
to,
turns.
uh,
So if you want to take some risk, then I will start a clock called the wheel turns. And depending on
Take
how
some
you
risk,
roll, I will
because
tick
I
this
think
clock some number of times.
nothing much has happened so
Excellent.
far. Okay,
Okay.
so I think maybe like Abbas, he's just
Yeah.
we'll roll, but like as the scene is, he just he casually takes the book, he's leafing through it, and like he doesn't expect to find anything there, but just suddenly something catches his eye, and now we'll see what it is. Right? Okay, so risky,
Yes, very good.
standard. Ooh, okay.
Oh, that's a fail.
That's not good.
So I'm gonna take this twice, and I think as you open this, Abbas, I don't think that anybody else hears it. Maybe it depends how familiar you are with the rattle, actually. So maybe Joan hears it, but I think Abbas, as you like open it and you have a look, you hear the rattle of the snake that we are now calling His Majesty, and it is a death rattle. It is the kind of rattle that like you have been telling Miraz all your life to be wary of, because it means that something is going to come out of the dark and sink its fangs straight into your own throat. And I think that if you look around you in this moment, you will not see the snake, and yet somehow it feels like its presence is not only right here in the room with you, it is
Disapproving of what I've just
disapproving
tried.
of what you have just tried to do.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which is casually open this holy book and like rifle through its pages like it's some kind of like fairy novel, like fairy tale novel.
Well,
At the dining
more
table
like
while
he's
they're
skipping
eating
to
eel.
more like his opening, I guess, like I don't know, a scholarly book, and skipping to the conclusion part without reading any of the.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. We
I
should
think
probably
let's
wrap up
up
soon,
with
but I
Abbas,
want the
think. Like,
scene with Miraz first.
he feels like the shiver in his
Uh-huh.
spine, right? And but like for a minute, for just a second, he thinks like, oh, this is huge. I need to like tell someone. But just given that something like big's happened, Miraz has gone off in a like in a pouting. He's gone up in his workshop, and like it's late in the day. He just slowly closes the book and says, actually, you know what, I'm pretty tired myself. Could you guys take off for guests, please? And he'll head off towards his personal study / bedroom. Yep.
Okay, may I have a scene with Miraz? Okay,
In the workshop?
so I think Vickers will pursue him into the workshop once she's done setting everything up, which will not take too long, but enough for him to stew a little bit in his frustration in there. And she will come in and close the door behind her, and she'll say, "Are you quite all right, darling?"
I think Miraz is hunched over. So might as well introduce. So I took Artificer, right? So I have one Sparkcraft design that I know. And so I am hunched over this extendable sort of like manipulator arm that I can do like fine motor work with from a real faraway distance. And I'm like tinkering with it. And then suddenly you see it spring out and kind of like punch me in the nose. And I kind of go, damn, blast, fuck it. And then he kind of like looks at you and says, no, I'm not quite all right. Everything seems to be going wrong.
Darling, do be careful around these things. They're quite dangerous, you know. Those terrible springs pack quite a punch. Here, are you well? Let me apply something. And she takes a handkerchief with some incredibly stinking herbal remedy that you know very well because Abbas uses it to treat minor wounds.
No, it's perfectly
so like
all right.
sudden childhood memories.
And then he kind of submits to it. And then he, despite the fact that it's offensive, he remembers it very much from his childhood, so it doesn't actually bother him that much beyond like. So I think he comes down, puts his hand on Vickers' hand, and then kind of like looks up, and he kind of like relaxes a little bit, and then he says, "I suppose you think I was quite the boor out there."
Well, I don't claim to understand the situation. It quite went over my head, but I do know that we run a temple here, and a temple is, as I understand it, a sort of sanctuary, isn't it? And, well, these people came to us seeking sanctuary, and so I thought it was only the decent thing to do. I'm sorry if I've made some sort of faux pas.
So I think maybe it is I who's made the faux pas. I don't know what I'm doing, truth be told, Vickers. This, and then he kind of gestures at the mechanical arm. This sort of thing, even if it plays merry hell and punches me in the nose, I understand this. Running temples, giving sanctuary, concerting with cultists who may or may not be revolutionaries, I don't know. Giant snakes that rattle around, and you must think it's very silly. I grew up with all this, but I don't understand it. I truly don't. And
Oh, it's quite all right, darling. It's new to the both of us. We still have to spend some time integrating. It's been harsh on us both, but I do think that, well, your uncle means well. I know he can be a little bit overbearing, but I do think he has your best interests at heart, truly, at least in this matter. And in other matters, well, you may, of course, politely tell him to go to hell if need be, but I don't think he's entirely wrong.
no, I suppose he isn't, but somehow the burden of leadership in this temple has fallen on my shoulders. And then he kind of like gives you this look where he doesn't say it because he doesn't like to articulate it, but like you can see that in his eyes, it's like he has to take decisions, but he is
Yeah.
constantly aware of the fact that he doesn't know what's best for the temple, whereas Abbas
Uh-huh.
does. But like, so it's this weird sort of thing where he tries to exert authority because he's supposed to do that, but like he doesn't know what to do.
Vickers thinks for a moment and clicks her tongue and puts the handkerchief back in her pocket. And then she says, "You know, I think maybe you should speak with Joan. She seems to understand better than anyone what is going on with these strangers, and perhaps that can give you some better basis for a decision. Chop chop, go now. Don't sulk in here. Does you no good. Look at your poor nose." And then she will just rudely grab your invention and like shove it out of the way and cover it with a cloth.
Yeah, well, Joan, huh? And there's like this other thing where we haven't seen this. So obviously, like this has happened on screen, but like I don't think Miraz and Joan have ever had like a one-on-one conversation yet. He's been avoiding her,
Uh-huh.
and I think
Yeah.
like he goes off because like it's probably time to change that. And I think as he stumbles away, and because he's a bit overwhelmed, he's like dabbing the bruise on his nose. He forgets to cover it up, but you notice, Vickers, that
Mhm.
aside from the manipulator arm on his desk, on his like workbench, like
Mhm.
there's some open chests and so on, crates and all that, like stuff that he brought over that he never really opened in front of you. And when you look in, you see that it's got, all sorts of paraphernalia like drugs and like alchemical reagents. You even see like some grenades, and like he had been poring over those, like stocking up, making sure that things were ready in case things went south.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Vickers looks over it quietly to herself, and after Miraz has left, she smiles softly and shakes her head and says just to herself, like, "Oh dear, Miraz, those aren't nearly enough grenades."
And so blows out our brief candle. I named the disciples of the Ceaseless Temple thus, with both their false names and true. Soumithri, called Tree as the GM. Zoheb, called Klow as Miraz. Prince as Vickers. Emma as Joan. Aadiyat, called Soap as Abbas. Blades in the Dark and the original inspiration for Udo Asha by John Harper and Evil Hat Productions. Iruvian playbooks by Johnstone Metzger. Jalandhar intro music by Kevin MacLeod. Outro music in Keeravani Ragam by U. Srinivas. Follow us at Desperate Attune on Twitter or email us at desperateattune@gmail.com. Support us at ko-fi.com/desperateattune.